Welcome to Stories with Steve, a podcast on the Central Buna Podcast Network. Every Thursday in 5 minutes or less, we'll lift you up with stories of how God works behind the scenes in our lives. Romans 8:28 tells us that God works all things together for the good of those who are called according to his purpose. Now with an encouraging story, here's Steve.
Pay it forward. You know, that's kind of a popular catchphrase that in our society that people use. And it really just means like just doing good for somebody, just out of the blue and just kind of starting a chain reaction. And I like to say more giving grace to people because that's kind of a more biblical concept. You know, there was an interesting movie called Pay It Forward about a little boy that started a movement. It really had a good theme to it about how this one simple acts this little boy did kind of motivated other people to do the same. And I thought about in my life, different opportunities I've had to do that. I remember I used to go to a grocery store and there was a tall, older black gentleman named Johnny. And Johnny would bag groceries and I would have Johnny take the groceries out to my car. And really I could have carried him myself, but I just loved talking to him because he had such a beautiful, gentle spirit about him. Well, one day Johnny was taking the groceries out to my car, and I looked down, and I saw his shoes had holes in them. I mean, big holes where you could see his socks through his shoes. And it just broke my heart. And so I tipped him usual $5 like I did. But when I sat in the car, I couldn't leave. It's like the Lord just told me, hey, I want you to give Johnny $50 for a pair of shoes. And, sometimes we try to argue with God, right? Well, God, I need to choose my own self. I can't do that. And how am I going to, give him $50, maybe make him uncomfortable. But I went to the ATM and then I found Johnny and I kind of just on the side, I didn't want to, embarrass him in any way. I just said, hey, Johnny, I see the shoes you're wearing, and brother, I just want to give you this $50. I felt like the Lord told me to give this to you. And he just kind of swallowed, had a lump in his throat and said, I am so overwhelmed. And I'll just never forget that. But he was such a blessing to me, and I just couldn't stand it because I know he worked hard and just a simple thing like shoes. And I remember another time I was in a restaurant. It was on a Sunday afternoon, actually Mother's Day. And so I was working part-time. I went in to get a quick bite to eat somewhere, and I see an elderly lady eating by herself. Keep in mind, this is Mother's Day, okay? And so I'm thinking, wow, I wonder if she's widowed. I wonder where her family, why is she by herself? And I thought about my own mother a couple hours away. I wasn't able to see. And so I didn't know what to do. One side of me wanted to go sit by her and just kind of be of, help to her. But I asked the waitress, hey, who is this lady? She said, well, she comes in quite a lot. And I said, hey, would it be okay if I just paid for her meal? I just feel like there's something I want to do for her. And so I paid for her meal. She says, do you want her to know? I said, no, please. I don't want her to know anything. I just want to do it. And hopefully that she can feel loved. It was only about $15. But, I don't share none of this to make myself sound good because most of the time I have not done what I should have done when I was prompted to do so. Actually, more times than not, I have probably received more than I've gave. I mean, just little simple things like going through a Chick-fil-A drive-through and somebody before you paying it forward and paying for your meal. Just the other day, I had a slightly embarrassing situation where I was in a checkout line in the store and I wound up 74 cents short. And I was like, wow, that never happens. I was going through my pockets to try to find change. Usually I always have change in my pockets. And I didn't want to hold up the line. I was kind of like fumbling. And then somebody pulled out $1 and paid for it for me. And of course I thanked him. And it was a very humbling experience, but I'm grateful because it showed me that, hey, sometimes we have to receive grace too, right? And there's been times in my life when I've had people give me money when I was going through a hard time, and the natural thing is to resist it, right? But I've learned that we have to receive grace also. Remember Peter, that story in the Bible where he was washing the disciples' feet, and Peter said, ain't gonna happen, not me. And so really sometimes we can have a form of spiritual pride, right? Where we don't want anybody to do anything for us. But to remember that we have to give grace and also we have to receive grace in our lives. So anyway, I hope that's something you can relate to. And I'd love to hear your story. Remember, you've always got a story to tell.